long before the fancy buildings, paved roads, or HOA signs showed up. Back then, it was just open water, trees, and peace. He built a small cabin there with his own hands, spent summers fishing, winters chopping wood. That land meant everything to him. So imagine my shock when I found out a local HOA had been collecting money not just from nearby homeowners, but directly from businesses claiming lake access fees that totaled over $700,000. And here's the twist: that lake, it was part of my grandpa's private land. They had no legal right to touch it. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they didn't know. But then I started digging. I looked through property lines, old deeds, archived tax maps. And what I found changed everything. Not only did the HOA know, they were counting on no one finding out. They'd been operating like they owned the lake, leasing access rights, even allowing developers to build around it, including one massive lakeside hotel that claimed to offer exclusive lakefront amenities. Problem is, part of that hotel, built on land still legally owned by my family. I kept quiet. For weeks, I watched, documented, and gathered proof. Every meeting, every transaction, every false document signed off by the HOA board. I wasn't just uncovering greed, I was uncovering fraud. But I knew if I moved too fast, they'd cover their tracks. So I waited for the right moment. And when I walked into their board meeting with the original land deed in hand, let's just say the room went silent. But what came next? Even I didn't see it coming. The second I laid the deed on the table, their faces changed. Then, HOA president, of course, leaned in like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. One of the board members tried to brush it off, saying the land had probably changed hands years ago. I stayed calm and told them I had the entire paper trail, including my grandfather's original purchase, yearly tax records, and the updated survey proving the shoreline, a chunk of that hotel parking lot, was still part of our family's land. Nobody said a word. They just stared. A few weeks earlier, I hadn't even planned on getting involved. My grandfather passed away last year, and while going through his old documents, I found the lake deed tucked into an envelope marked asterisk, "Don't lose this." I didn't think much of it until I saw the HOA sending out new fee notices to nearby residents, including a lake maintenance contribution. That's when I started asking questions. Locals told me the HOA had been charging businesses and homeowners for lake use for years, saying the funds went toward upkeep, but the lake never looked maintained. In fact, it had started to erode near the south end where the hotel construction had begun. Something didn't add up. And when I compared the parcel lines with the county records, it hit me the HOA had no ownership of the lake. None. They were banking on the fact that no one would dig deep enough to notice, especially not some kid from out of town cleaning out his grandfather's papers. But they didn't count on me showing up with proof. And they definitely didn't expect what I found next, buried deep in the hotel's own permits. That's when I knew this wasn't just about stolen money. It was about stolen land. The more I looked into it, the more twisted it became. The hotel, which boasted private lake access and charged guests a premium for lakeside views, had filed construction permits that conveniently ignored one entire corner of the property. The same corner that overlapped with my grandfather's deed. When I brought this to a contact at the county zoning office, he raised his eyebrows and said, "That section should have been flagged years ago." He pulled up internal documents and noticed something odd. Several inspection records had been digitally signed but never actually reviewed. Someone had pushed them through. Meanwhile, the HOA kept quiet. No apologies, no response, just silence. But I wasn't the only one noticing. A few local homeowners, ones who had paid thousands over the years in so-called lake fees, started reaching out to me. One couple said they were told the fees were mandatory or they'd lose neighborhood privileges. Another showed me a letter From 5 years back, where the HOA threatened legal action for non-payment, that's when it clicked. This wasn't a mistake. It was a system. I also learned that the hotel's construction project was partially funded through a private investor group, one with direct ties to the HOA's treasurer. Suddenly, this wasn't just about my grandpa's land anymore. This was a full-on scheme where the HOA funneled funds into a property they had no legal right to build on. And now that someone finally pulled the curtain back, they were scrambling. What really kept me up, though, was what I hadn't yet figured out. If the HOA knew the land wasn't theirs, and if the hotel's foundation sat on our property, why would they risk building at all? Were they that confident no one would ever question it? Or was someone helping them keep it buried? I decided to walk the property one more time, tracing every inch of the lake's edge with a printed map and surveyor's report in hand. When I reached the back of the hotel, I noticed a section fenced off with fresh construction signs. Behind it was heavy equipment parked and idle, like they'd left in a hurry. That same section matched perfectly with the old cabin foundation my grandpa built in the 70s. They had cleared it, leveled it, and built right over the land without even knowing or caring what they were standing on. The anger I felt wasn't just about money anymore. It was about how easily they tried to erase history. That evening, a black SUV pulled into my driveway. A man in a suit stepped out, holding a folder. He introduced himself as a legal representative for the hotel's parent company. He wasn't rude, but he wasn't exactly friendly either. Said they were willing to make a generous offer in exchange for me quietly resolving the deed dispute. I didn't even open the envelope he handed me. I just asked him one thing. "Did you know?" He hesitated just for a second, then replied, "We assumed it was taken care of." That was all I needed to hear. After he left, things got tense fast. My mailbox was tampered with. Someone called in a bogus noise complaint on my property. I caught a guy taking photos near my truck in the middle of the night. The message was clear. They wanted me to back off, but I didn't. I filed a formal complaint with the county, attached every document I had, and CC'd the media. The pressure was rising. Now, the HOA, the hotel, and their investors all had something to lose. But none of them knew what I was about to do next. A week after filing my complaint, I got a call from someone I didn't expect, an elderly man named Mr. Winslow, who used to work for the county's land registry office decades ago. He said he read about my situation through a local blog that picked up the story and recognized the lake's name immediately. "Your grandfather used to come in every year to update his records," he told me. "Real quiet man. But there's something you need to see." We met at a small diner just outside town. He brought a worn-out folder filled with yellowed documents, handwritten notes, old maps, and a notarized agreement I'd never seen before. It was a private contract signed in the late 90s between my grandfather and a man named Arthur Green. The name didn't ring a bell at first until Mr. Winslow said Green later changed his name. "He's the developer behind the hotel." My stomach dropped. The man who built the hotel wasn't just some outside investor. He had a direct connection to our family land. And this contract proved it. What shocked me more was the deal's details. It outlined that the developer could only use part of the lakefront under strict leasing terms that expired over 15 years ago. That meant not only had they built on land without permission, but they had done so while knowingly violating a lapsed agreement. It all made sense now. The HOA, the construction permits, the forged inspections, it was all part of a cover-up to keep this old deal buried. They thought no one would ever find the original papers. But now I had the key to everything. And if this reached the county court, the hotel's entire foundation literally and legally could come crashing down. I walked into the county courthouse with that folder tucked under my arm, every step echoing like a warning shot. I wasn't just filing a land dispute. Now, I was exposing a network of fraud that had gone unnoticed for years. With Mr. Winslow as my witness and that original agreement in hand, I submitted everything to the clerk. The court fast-tracked the case. Within days, an emergency hearing was scheduled. When he looked up, he didn't hesitate. The court ruled that the land in question, including the section under the hotel's back wing and part of the shoreline, was still legally mine. The HOA had no claim to the lake and their collection of $700,000 in so-called lake fees, flagged for investigation and possible restitution. But just when I thought it was over, the twist came. A county official pulled me aside after the ruling and quietly said, "There's one more thing." He handed me a sealed envelope discovered during a records audit sparked by my case. Inside was a letter written by my grandfather, never sent or addressed. To me, in it, he explained everything. The reason he kept paying taxes on that land, even though he didn't live there anymore. He knew this day might come. And in one final line, he wrote, "Asterisk, if they ever try to take the lake, don't fight."